Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us once again. For those tuning in on the simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X, we're glad you all could be with us today. We're going to about to bring in our friends over on Amazon so they can be part of our show for today. Have a returning guest that's with us. We have a different type of conversation coming up for you guys today. So I hope you guys are ready for that and ready to add some great books to your reading list as well. And we're now live on the Amazon Live platform with Cyrus Webb Presents. Going to type you guys in a welcome message over there. If you guys are new to us on Amazon, make sure you guys do hit that follow button. You see it either here in this corner or down below. You also will see the books by our next guest. We're excited to welcome back Harold Phifer to our broadcast today. Harold is the author of several books, including the one you guys see here, My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift, but also under his pseudonym, Dean Conan, you have his book, A Fool Indeed, there too, that I'll highlight for you guys in the carousel. We're going to talk to Harold not only about his love of storytelling, but also adventure and what it's been like for him to share that with all of you. If you guys are new to Harold, of course, we'll let you guys know how to stay connected with him too. But Harold, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Look, the pleasure's definitely on mine. Always great talking with you, man. And this is our first time having a conversation with you since we broke the Guinness World Record. So we're excited to have you back on with us. For those of you who were watching the shows, you would have seen Harold's book, A Fool Indeed, there on our step and repeat that we had where we were doing the interviews. And Harold, so glad to have you a part of that event. And of course, our travel that we're doing in Atlanta, Los Angeles, and New York as well. So that brings us to this question, Harold. What has it been like for you to be able to share the messages in your book and to see the response from readers?
Oh, it's been awesome. And let me congratulate you as well on your Guinness Book accomplishment. And I also appreciate you shading my book there.
Of
But
course.
it's been great. It's good, people feedback or people read your books, and that's what most authors we hope people read our stories, and then of course you hope they like them. And I get a lot of that, and which is a very good response, good feedback. Getting encourage you that you're doing something that people like. Um, it's feeding into that you know that people like what you're doing,
Right.
and encourage you to continue on.
Yeah. So, Harold, you're one of these interesting authors, though, and I read a lot of books. I've talked to a lot of authors, of course, over the years. But you're interesting in that you've been able to kind of enter two different worlds. One, you were introduced to myself and other readers by sharing about your own life. Now, I mentioned, of course, My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift, but I also want to highlight for our audience joining us on the Amazon side. You guys will see Harold's book, Sleepwalking Out of Afghanistan, also Surviving Chaos. So that's how we first got to know you. What has it been like for you to, one, be able to share your story, your life story with us, Harold, but also to show your journey as an entertainer of sorts through your pseudonym, Dean Conan, too?
Yeah, my initial books, Sleepwalking Out of Afghanistan
Hmm.
and Surviving Chaos, on to the My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift. It's kind of like those stories you just got to get off your chest, and that's what they were. Wanted to share, and also kind of was kind of a litmus test, kind of like, am I crazy? I want somebody to read it and get their opinion, like, how bizarre my world was.
Mm.
And that was good, putting it out to get feedback. And even when people say, man, that was wild, it's there because you like, I always thought it was wild, So
Yeah.
when you hear it, I'm not insulted, it just kind of, validate what I felt, growing up.
Hmm.
But the other series, Fool Me Thrice and A Fool Indeed, part of the Fool's Gold Chronicle, um, that's a two-part series. Hopefully, eventually, I do a trilogy. That's more footloose, fancy-free, fantasy stuff. It's more relaxed, more fun, more building the character, building the story. It's not as uptight as writing other books.
Right. So let's talk about that because when you're able to use your imagination as you've been able to do with the Dean Conan books, of course, that allows you not to feel like you're incorporating so much of yourself, but we as readers, Harold, and I know you've heard this already, we're going to try to figure out, okay, who is this really? Is he trying to tell us something about himself? Who is he writing about? What has that been like for you to see that how our readers have been curious as to what kind of inspired the characters under the Dean Conan brand?
Yeah, I get that a lot. You're right. That people want
Hmm.
the curious. They want to know how much is me per se,
Hmm.
and not a whole lot, But as a guy, yeah, some of it, yeah. Um, and I tell most guys, I said, and a lot of guys don't want to read because they think I guess a chick book, and it's
Yeah.
it's not completely a chick book. But I
Hmm.
tell guys, I said, if you read this book, I bet you'll see yourself in that book somewhere,
Right.
and maybe the way we think, what we do, or maybe experience, you would see yourself.
Right.
Uh, but um, that book, believe it or not, it's a it's a combination of a bunch of things. I got started. Well, I was kind of trying to build a character, and I met this funeral director that kind of, and it was a funeral director that he had this suave look about him, and he was basically my Charlie Moe,
Yeah.
and yeah, from my hometown. I never told him this,
Hmm.
and another part of the story I purposely put in there was Charlie Moe worked at a sanitation department. And one of the biggest influences of my life was a guy that worked at the sanitation department. So
Hmm.
that was purposely done. So it's some things that I slipped in there that, you know, that meant something to me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's so interesting, and that's the great thing about being able to be creative. So let's go back because I did mention to Harold before we went live here. I want to talk about something we hadn't talked about before when it comes to his newest book, by Bully My Aunt and Her Final Gift. But before we get into that, what is it that gave you the courage to start writing in the first place, Harold? Because I think for a lot of people, some of them feel like they have a story to share, but they're not really sure. What gave you the courage to say, you know what, this is something I want to do. I'm going to do it.
I've always had the stories, always had the experience, always thing in your head you want to get out and felt, I would do it.
Hmm.
And years pass, and you don't. Well, I was in Afghanistan, and our camp got attacked by the Taliban. And in the process, I thought I was going to be actually killed.
Yeah.
So while I'm struggling, fight, trying to get to the safe spot, uh, thinking, it was over for me, the thought came through my head that, Harold, you never wrote that book, and
Wow.
look like you're not going to make it to write that book.
Mm.
And I made a vow in the process while I was trying to, you know, you know, as best I can, get to a safe haven.
Right.
God, if you let me make it out of here, I'm gonna, write that book.
Wow.
And to be honest, sleepwalking out of Afghanistan was that book. Obviously, I made it out.
Hmm.
And after I wrote that book, I morphed another book with it, and I created Surviving Chaos.
Yeah. And part of that has been, and that's a great segue then, Harold, from surviving chaos to the other chaos you found you were able to survive with your aunt Kathy. Um,
Right.
people are able to read these books and say, "Wow, I have a relative like that," or "I felt this way." Talk to us about that
Right.
experience. What it's been like for you to have people connect with your own personal story and even see a bit of themselves in your stories.
Yeah, people don't believe it, but or they kind of hide it and sit on it. And being that I exposed my aunt how she was, colorism, I wasn't her favorite, and she made that so obvious time and time again.
Hmm.
A lot of people who read my books, they start to tell me, or they start to talk about it, or like just like you mentioned, like,
Right.
yeah, I felt that way, or I was treated a certain way. But a lot of time, they are sitting on it, hiding it,
Right.
because I guess that's the thing to do.
Right.
But it affected me so much so I like, well, I can benefit from this. I can put it out there, it'll be therapy, and I can share with other people.
Yeah. So true. Stacey Thomas, hello to you over there on Facebook. Glad you could join us. I want to reset real quick, Harold, and say for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Webb Presents on Amazon Live, but we are simulcasting this on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X. Harold Phifer is back with us today. We're talking with Harold not only about his storytelling journey, but what it's been like for him to share that with all of you, including books under his own name, like My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift. But also, of course, the book under Dean Conan, of course, as well, including the newest book, A Fool Indeed. I want to also let our audience know if you guys have not read the other book in the series with Dean Conan, I'm going to highlight for you guys Fool Me Thrice. It's available right now, too. You can get the Kindle edition, as you can see there, for $2.99. And then, of course, you can get the print edition there as well. But we're talking to Harold about the storytelling journey he's been on. So, Harold, I want to talk about something today, and you kind of touched on it with your Aunt Kathy and some of the issues, because one of the things you and I have not talked about, and I thought about when I was prepping for this show today, is why you even ended up with Aunt Kathy in the first place. And you do give us the answer to that in the chapter Hal's Story Two of a Kind in the book, My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift. But let's talk about that for a moment, because, you know, there were, Aunt Kathy has always been Aunt Kathy. Let's just say
Right,
that.
right.
But what was it like for you to think about the circumstances with your mother and everything that precipitated your brother and you ended up at Aunt Kathy's house?
Yeah, my mom was schizophrenic, and with that, she wasn't very responsible.
Hmm.
And I say that, but let's say her condition didn't allow her to be very
Yeah.
responsible.
Hmm.
And so, she wasn't very good at taking care of us, or getting us things, or making us, discipline us, or guiding us.
Right.
So Cassie took us on when my mom really fell short or things wasn't going so well.
Hmm.
So Kathy, I got to give her credit, took us on, shelter, basic fostering us until my mom got back on her feet or was able to, you know, deal with some of her ghosts or whatever you if you want to call it that.
Right.
But that meant I got more exposed to Aunt Kathy, and my brother Jerry got better exposed, even more exposed to, which Aunt Kathy liked that part, but she
Right.
just didn't like the other brothers and my mom coming with it.
Hmm. Yeah. And so the reason why I want to bring this up is because I think the family dynamics is something, Harold, that people can relate to. And you even talk about in the chapter that I referenced. Okay, and Kathy took you in, but there was something. It wasn't just about her being good, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and 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 I think as people read the book, they'll kind of get an idea of that. Did you realize how extreme she could be before you all start staying there on on a more lengthy basis?
I did. Um, but the more I stayed, the more we were to there, the the more we stayed there together.
Hmm.
And I'm like 3 years younger than my oldest brother, but I was quite outgoing. I was quite curious. So whatever he would do, I wanted to do.
Right.
But that wasn't what Aunt Catherine wanted me. She didn't want me so close to him.
Hmm.
And that's when you start to notice the difference. And not only that, I was reading at 3. I was trying to play the piano. I was really, outgoing kid.
Hmm.
And she couldn't stand it because I was overshadowing my big brother,
Hmm.
who was, the apple of her eye. So that was hard for me.
Yeah. I love the fact that even as you do talk about the the things that she did. There were some things though that you do commend her on. I want to read this from that chapter that I referenced. For those who have the print edition of the book, Harold, it's on page 49. You say this when it comes to Aunt Kathy and, of course, the living situation. Unfortunately, mom's predicament allowed Aunt Kathy to be the greater force in our lives. All parents bought new clothes for their kids at the start of school. So Aunt Kathy tried her hand at the process, but I was too young and dumb to know the setup. A price had to be paid for my new duds, and I was too far over the top to see the trap. It was only a matter of time before that debt came out of my hide. And you say this, and Kathy got Jerry and me identical pants, socks, polos, and shoes. The only differences were our shirts. Jerry had a peppermint stripe top, and I had the got the wintergreen. We looked like a pair of candy sticks out of a cigar box. Even at the age of 6, I couldn't remember ever having freshly bought clothes. I was a hand-me-down Hal. Whatever Jerry didn't want came to me. With school on the horizon and new threats to boot, man, there wasn't a chance I would sleep before the big day. And then you go on to tell the story that our audience will have to wait to read. But I want to talk about that because I love the fact that you do give her credit, and there were other times too, for
Right.
what she did. But I'm curious though, and I thought about this actually coming into today, Harold. You mentioned your mother's situation. How
Hmm.
much of it do you think was Kathy just not knowing any better?
I think she relished my mom being having that predicament because
Hmm.
we had to depend on her,
Okay.
and she got greater access to Jerry.
Okay.
And yeah, so I think in a weird way, maybe it's unfair for me to say it, but that's how I felt. That's how I
Okay.
perceived it, the
Mhm.
situation, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Do you think she was, because I wanted to point out that particular situation for a reason. Do you think she was at least trying to show that she could be motherly?
Yeah, well, to Jerry. Yeah, to Jerry.
Okay.
Um, to me, I have to admit she did try to be an aunt at times. I'll
Mhm.
admit that.
Yeah.
Um, but kind of like, let's don't go too far here now. Don't-
Right. Right.
yeah. It,
Yeah.
I, it didn't take me long to realize, where I stood.
Got you. And
Mhm.
so now looking back at it, after, time, and then of course thinking about what happened after her death. Um, what are your thoughts now about, especially when it comes to trauma? Because I think one thing that I thought about was interesting. So this could be looked at as a form of childhood trauma, right?
Right.
That you endured, and then you go in and experience trauma, in your adulthood as well. What was it like for you to think about this trauma and how it may have prepared you for some of the other trauma and situations you found yourself in, Harold?
It's weird. Sarah, funny you kind of asked that. I went through a point in my life where I kind of felt like a misfit because of my mom and then the Kathy stuff
Hmm.
up until about 29. And then I looked at other things in my life, like even some of the people I dated, and I started to think, I think I'm attracted to this, this craziness.
Mm, yeah,
It just seemed like anything unusual, I would find it,
yeah.
And it's kind of weird, but it's
Mhm.
something I did recognize.
Yeah. And I brought that up because as I think about these conversations, especially when I'm interviewing people that I've talked to before, Harold, I'm always looking at what they've written and thinking about, okay, what thread haven't we pulled on? As far
Okay.
as what they've written, and who they are today, because I think there's always a correlation, I think, between what we've gone through and kind of the person we become. Sometimes some people, Harold, as you know, would have gone through things you did. It made them more empathetic toward other people, right? Made them look
Right.
for the underdog and want to, make sure they go after, it to help them out. Other people would have gone through it and made them more jaded. So I thought it would be interesting for our audience to see how what you went through kind of affected you. Stacy said, "Thank God Harold was strong enough to not let her ruin his life." That's a really good,
I
really
appreciate
really good
statement.
point. And I think too, because it can happen, right, Harold? I mean,
Right.
do you think you give yourself credit for that, of the man you become, the success you've been able to have in spite of what you went through?
Oh yeah. Um, but then again, I think I kind of redirected some of that anger.
Mm,
Um, towards my dad. You know,
Hmm.
it's kind of like, man, if he had have, I don't know, taught me how to be a man or
Hmm.
been around just a little bit, I could have weathered it. I could have got through it quicker,
Gotcha.
you know. But it it made me a little bit more driven. You know, I tell anyone I have no one to blame for. You know, I've done okay. I've done okay,
Right.
and I was on a pretty good trajectory, and no one to blame for alternate that path but Harold. You know that. You know, so but other than that, yeah, and I've done a lot to give back once I realized how blessed I was to get through it.
Right.
You know, yeah,
Yeah. And that's why I'm so glad when I was when Harold took advantage of our get back opportunities, I thought for sure he wanted me to be able to share a full Indeed in the Dean Conan books. I was really surprised, Harold, when you um, told me that you wanted to include My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift. But this conversation, I think, really shows there's a real, this could easily be a movie. I
right,
mean, it's so funny. I mean, thinking about the funeral in particular, you give us the humor, there is that side of it, but there also is a lot of serious points of this story too. I think that people
right.
can be able to relate to and to be able to see for sure. So, Harold, I want to ask you: is that something you've thought about? Have you thought about My Bully, My Honor, Her Final Gift being something people see on television or on the big screen?
Oh yes, yeah, I mean, I think every author hope they have a book or a story that resonate with people
Hmm.
to the point that it can hit big screen or play or whatever. Yes, of course. But let me go back on something.
Yeah.
One of the things that and I know it's hard to believe it, and I understand people that don't fully believe the stories. I was so I was so loose. Could have gone in. I mean, I tell people, I tell people, and without telling my age, I knew people that quit school in third or fourth grade,
Hmm.
and I could have done the same in on Catholic. Probably wouldn't have done anything.
Hmm.
And I'm just saying, it's just the grace of God. I didn't walk into something that really could have harmed me. I had a good knack. I had a good knack for knowing what to do, seeing trouble, how to stay out of it. But there was no guidance. There was no, and I bring it up because I talked about going to the Christmas play.
Yeah.
I mean the Christmas parade. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
and we talking a 6, 7 year old kid walking middle of the night 4 to 10 miles, away from home, you know, to see the Christmas parade
Hmm.
and find his way back home. Well, it just you don't get that today, and thank God we don't. But that's how untethered I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stacy says, Cyrus, thanks for these questions, and thank you, Harold, for being so honest. Yeah, I mean, I think these are important because let me also tell y'all this: Harold was no saint. So when y'all read, so I don't want y'all to think I'm trying to paint him all as the victim. Because when you read My Bully, My Honor, Her Final Gift, you see there were some moments he needed something, but
Oh my God.
so I have to be balanced here, Harold. So,
I tell
but
you, go ahead.
But I think though the idea of trauma and past trauma and I think there's so much in this, I think, that still shows what you've been able to overcome in spite of. You
Right.
know, yeah, so I mean there's some funny moments in the book. But there's also moments like, what, yeah, hair needed to be tore up for that.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I got a story. Let me share with you real quick.
Yeah.
Um, my bully, my aunt, and her final gift is a spinoff of the book before that was Surviving Chaos:
Hmm.
How I Found Peace at a Beach Bar. And in that book, that's a story I talked about. I threw urine on one of my bullies.
Hmm.
Well, two of my bullies. And talking about I don't regret it to this day. But talking about someone someone who should have got a beating,
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
I should have.
right.
But yeah, I mean, if you ever get a chance to pick that one up, it's a story. I
Uh,
mean,
and you
and
all,
I
yeah, go ahead.
and I apologize, sir. And
No, go ahead.
I alluded to it in the book, My Bully, My Aunt, that hey, I gave the guy a urine bath, and he was now an usher at the church.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting there like, if he, start having flashback, he may jump on me at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
funeral,
right, right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in these, and again, that's why these conversations are so great. Even though I've had guests on before, the conversations are always different, and I think that is the thing for sure. See, I see Stacey. I told you. Uh, Stacey said that was asked before. That's what I'm saying. So we have to
Yeah.
be balanced about this. We have to be balanced. You all can get My Bully, My Aunt, and Her Final Gift. You can get a full Indeed and Surviving Chaos and other books here on Amazon. So make sure you all take advantage of that. Harold, another great conversation with you. Let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you?
Right. You can go to my website, riseandread.com, and you see all my books there.
Hmm.
Or you can go to Facebook or Instagram. I'm under the author Harold Phifer,
Hmm.
and like I said, all my books on Amazon.com.
Exactly. Well, Harold, congratulations to you. Harold is featured in the upcoming issue of Conversations Magazine out next week. So make sure you guys look out for that as well. Harold, looking forward to our next chat together, man.
I appreciate it. Same here. Same here.
And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. All right.